this week's show, we're going to be talking about an online survey that was conducted by the Bookangel Club regarding author safety. We'll break it all down and talk about the results of that survey with our awesome roundtable discussion panel. Then we welcome CL Cannon's Indie Connection, and we get all on board for the Silver Arrow. Then we get off that station to head into our next destination, which is the final 5 minutes with the one and only Madilynn Dale, as she unveils a brand new box set. All that is brought to you this week by our sponsor, the awesome A.F. Stewart. So sit down, grab yourself a cup of coffee as we get ready to discuss these issues and more. For This Week in Indies, here's your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. May 29th, 2022. And we've got a great show ahead for you. I don't want to dilly-dally because I have a feeling a lot of people want to talk this morning, and we've got a really nice topic to do just that with, and a survey to kind of go over. So I'll introduce this, what prompted this, and then we'll get to talking. But I wanted to bring on the round table while we were here, and let's start with the introductions, and then we'll move forward. So, Miss Dale, start us off, please.
Hey, guys, and I'm going to apologize if my mic and stuff decides to act up today. It's been on the fritz. I'm Madilynn Dale. I'm a fantasy, romance, paranormal, mixed genre author. I've got a couple new books coming out this summer. As you saw in the opening, I've got a new box set that's going to be dropping in July. It is on pre-order, and I am super stoked to be here and chat about this topic this morning.
Awesome. Welcome. All right, Venessa?
Hey, everybody. I am the author of the Urban Fantasy Soul Cavern series. This is the first book. I'm also a freelance editor, and I'm also excited about this topic because it's so very important, especially in our current climate, I think.
Joshua Pantalleresco. I write stuff in podcasts too. In this particular topic, I've seen quite a lot of it throughout the decades I've been in this industry, so this will definitely be an interesting one to talk about today.
Good morning, I'm Ron Lahr. I write fantasy, science fiction, humor, mixes of those. I also host Indie Mayhem here on the GoIndieNow channel, which is a game show where all the contestants are indie creators. I'm just excited to bring my experience as a humorous author to this serious subject.
Awesome. Welcome. All right, Bob?
Hey, I'm Bob McGough. I write the Jubal County Saga. It's about a redneck wizard in South Alabama, where I'm from. And yeah, this is just a fascinating topic. I've been fairly blessed to not have had a direct run-in with this issue, but I unfortunately know a lot of people who have. So,
all right. Well, that's just to inject a little humor in to start things off. Thanks, David. We appreciate that.
Yes.
Good morning.
Anita's here, and then of course, I think Margaret's still here. She might have just come in and hit the like button and left. I don't know. I didn't hear from her, but hopefully she comes back if she's here. And then we've got some fourth wall breakers here. Nice to have everybody. All right. So that being said, I want to just go over this real quickly, and then I'm going to shut up and let everybody else talk. And so this was brought up. Venessa actually sent this to us, and I didn't even know it was going on, but I'm glad to have found it. And it's really interesting, and it is an author safety survey that was conducted by the Bookangel Club. It ran from February 1st of this year to April 30th. It was various questions about author safety, issues, harassment, stalking, privacy, and more. And 979 authors participated in it. And there is some interesting and polarizing results for sure. Some eye-opening things that I really found wow. But I wanted to start off this discussion by asking everyone, their initial thoughts.
The harassment definitely did not surprise me one bit. I've been I have been fortunate to be involved in various aspects of writing. I've been in the comic book community and I've been in prose. And my first exposure to getting into the comic book community actually involved a giant case of failure to pay off the creatives and a harassment scheme to go with. There was a gentleman by the name of Rick Olney who had failed to pay some well-known creators and some not so well-known creators money. He would threaten them with their reputation. He would threaten them that they wouldn't get published again, and he would intimidate a lot of authors into being silent for a very long time, until Gail C. Moon, who writes Birds of Prey and a few other well-known books, exposed him. And when she exposed him, everybody came out of the woodwork. That was my first exposure into seeing the kind of abuse that is possible and harassment that is possible with creatives. It is one of the most common things. It is in every aspect of publishing, every aspect, no matter what level you're going to go into, whether it's indie, traditional, you name it, it's there.
To me, the most surprising thing was not the amount of harassment going on. It's that how many people thought that it was only happening to them. Because that was to me the truly shocking takeaway.
I have to agree with that. Sorry, Vanessa. Because I felt comforted by the fact that I'm not the only one that's had to deal with stuff like this, because I've been harassed for the genre I write, because I do have a reverse harem book that I dropped in January, Black Flames, and just like sexual harassment and all kinds of stuff on different social media platforms. And it's comforting to know that I'm not the only one out there that's dealing with all of this.
Yeah, that was a big surprise. I don't know if I'd say surprise, but probably one of the most stark sets of numbers is the fact that something like over 65% of authors have in this survey reported being harassed specifically for writing. I want to make sure that that's clear. It's not talking about other types of harassment that may come from maybe political views that you've posted or whatever. This is specifically about the writing harassment, like Maddie mentioned, that came out of the writing. But then there's over 60% of people, almost 70, I think, who have experienced that sort of harassment, but like the numbers as far as how much people think that authors are harassed was under 25%. So, or people thought that less than 25% of authors experience this type of harassment. And I think that was really striking. I think that's kind of what we're all talking about, is that was really striking to me, but also at the same time, it's not surprising, because don't we feel that about any kind of abuse or harassment or whatever? People who are in an abusive relationship often think that they're the only ones, or, people who get bullied often think that it's not such a widespread problem. So that, even though it was stark, it's not, when we think about it and how society works at this time, it's not surprising at all, if that makes sense. It's both surprising and not surprising at the same time.
You're a complicated person.
I am. It's true. You're not the first to have pointed that out.
I believe it. So my biggest takeaway was more personal. After reading the survey, I was just incredibly surprised that I have never been harassed.
I can harass you if you want.
Based on what I write. That's all.
I do use
Just
the
I
dance
was-
crowd to make up for it.
Thank you. That would
It might just be the fact that where do we go with you, Ron? Like where do we begin? Right? And like where do we go?
Maybe I just need to become more red, and then I'll get harassed. So fingers crossed.
Honestly, probably, and then this is just my own experience throughout the years of seeing this. The most common harassment, unfortunately, to writers is other writers. We deal in a industry where there's a lot of relationships formed on a lot of different levels, and what can happen when there is, even sometimes with no ill intention. I think something that needs to be said too. It doesn't always start that way. It ends that way, though. It can end that way. Is you will see people working together on various projects, and one, there's a power balance issue, or one's paying the other, or one's more well known than another, or even just something just sets people off, and suddenly you enter into a very abusive relationship, and very often it is the creatives themselves that are doing it. And I keep this in mind because I collaborate with a lot of illustrators for my books, and I'm just like, you know what, they trust me. And it's because I've been in a situation where things have happened to me, and I'm like, it's very easy for a relationship to go sideways. It really, really is. And it's probably the most common. Fans is second most common, depending on what you write, what's your genre, and all that stuff like that. But I would probably go so far to say it is the industry itself that is probably the most damning on that.
While I don't disagree that there absolutely is that issue, especially when there is a power differential in a professional relationship, I don't know that I'd go so far as to say that's most of the time. But I think it also depends on the author. And this particular survey didn't pull gender or age or anything like that. It was all about the writing. But in my experience, the gender of the writer and the genre are those open the doors to people outside of the industry. I think certainly financial harassment, absolutely industry pushed, right? That's an industry thing. But when you're talking about just straight up harassment and threats and things like that, like physical threats and blackmail and that kind of thing, I don't think that is any more in the industry as anything else. Because as an example, I had a situation where, and it was weird. Of all places, it was on Quora. And on Quora, I almost only ever answer questions about writing, about the publishing industry and stuff. I'll occasionally answer or, toss my 2 cents into like historical questions and things like that. But I tend to, although like I use Twitter as my political outlet. Like on Twitter, I'm all over politics, but on Quora, I'm not. This guy started sending me these private messages where he had literally tracked me down on different social media. And like he was definitely far right and a little unhinged and stuff. And it scared me. Like it really scared me. And he was horrible. And so, I mean, yes, I don't disagree, Josh, that absolutely there's that kind of abuse within the industry, but it's not, I don't think I would say that it's mostly within the industry.
I think I think that I'm just going to speak for myself. Operating at the level of fame that I am, which is virtually non-existent, the majority of people that I engage with are other writers. Like I would love if my Twitter was, mostly fans, but right now my Twitter is mostly other writers. And so at least at my level, I think it skews more towards the, all right, well, let's be real. No one cares enough about me to harass me. But if it was, it's more likely to come from a competitor than a fan at this point of my career. But Stephen King, do you think Stephen King gets more harassment from fans or from Michael Connolly or Brian Keene or someone like that.
So, can I answer both of you? I'm not saying it's most. I should let me correct this. But there's different kinds of harassment in the industry.
Absolutely. Yes.
And the fact of the matter is, I think one of the most harassing things in the industry itself, this is just strictly in the industry. We're not going to talk about fans in a second here, because I do have a Stephen King story, oddly enough, I can bring up. The thing about this is there's two major kinds of harassment. And the first level of it, and this is where I'm coming from, is that professional fear of never getting work again, because someone is connected to someone, is connected to someone, is connected to someone. That is very real. It has been a part of this industry as long as I've been around. It is probably, I would say, it's the most common form of abuse. I'm not
it's
saying
rampant in Hollywood. It is absolutely
rampant
in Hollywood.
It's rampant in Hollywood. It's rampant in comics. It's rampant in prose. There is a publisher, and this is where I'm going to go. There is a medium-sized publisher called Cheesy Press in 2019. I had literally just been at the Aurora. They're one of their authors won the Aurora for Best Novel that year. 2 weeks later, they get exposed for a scandal, underpaying authors, bullying, harassment. This is a medium-sized publisher. It is in this industry. It is real. It is very, very prevalent, even in publishing. Now, that is not the only form of abuse whatsoever. Women abuse could be a topic by itself in terms of getting hired, work. I can't even begin to go into depth on that one. And then there's the final one. There's called the fame abuse. Let's be honest, right? I mean, Stephen King. So Stephen King can't even take a shit. Let's be perfectly real here. He is so well known. He cannot go outside and have a moment's peace. I had somebody that I knew that actually met Stephen King, another writer, and King was getting harassed by this fan, right? This fan just would not leave him alone. So what he ended up doing, he did the only thing he could do, which is he turned around, shook his hand, goes, "How do you do?" and turned right back around. That's all he could do. He's there is what is called a bubble. I call it a fame bubble level of abuse too. This is why when you go to a convention, you see someone like Leah Fisher. I remember Carrie Fisher by Princess Leia. She was surrounded by security guards. And the reason she was surrounded is because people were following her. And that's another form of harassment and abuse. It's you get to a certain point in this industry, and any of these industries, people are going to know you exist. And when that happens, you're going to get people paying attention to you on all kinds of levels. And like I said, what I mean is the one I'm talking about is the most common, the fear of finding work. But there are so many. Harassment I would go so far as to say is the nature of the beast in this business. It's just there no matter where you go. So that's all I'm saying.
Go ahead.
Need to put this up there, and I wanted to get this out there. I found female horror authors get a lot of harassment from social media creepers. Margaret has a really good one, but go ahead, Vanessa, and then we'll.
I was going to say that I'm not discounting what you're saying at all, Josh, but in this case, that's not what we're talking about as far as this particular survey. This particular survey is actually much more about online harassment that crosses the line, and it's not from people inside it could be, because some of it's anonymous. And honestly, that power differential and that afraid of not getting work and stuff, that is across every industry. That's a power issue, right? You can be in any industry, and yes, it is rampant in all entertainment. Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. But again, that's something that's in every industry. You go into finance, you go into stock market, you go into insurance, you go into any industry where people in power want a thing. They're going to put that pressure on the people below them always. That's just how our society works. And, it's exhausting and stuff. But I think this particular survey is really about and it can be from other authors, and it can be from, I wouldn't call them fans, but the public. But I think this is really specifically about initially online harassment, and then where online harassment crosses into in-person harassment and or like criminal behavior. Like there were a number of people, like 28% of authors reported harassment of arson attempts, theft, threats delivered to the homes or place, family members being approached, attempted kidnapping, physical assault, identity theft, romantic obsession, including forced marriage and elopement reported by both male and female authors. So like this is an entirely different, I think, and we could spend an entire program talking about internal industry harassment. But I'd really like to focus on what this particular survey tells us about and how we can, as authors and other indie creators, how we can sort of combat that and protect ourselves from this specific type of harassment.
Okay.
Sorry. This is just a thing that I think is very, very important. Like, because any of us who own a home, you are in danger of having, this is an actual danger, because if you own a home, your name and address is a public record. So if someone, and especially if you've got like, I have a weird name. That's a very unique name. Look at that. I guess it's on that side. There it is.
I just want to point out, look at mine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you and I have the same like heritage. So yes, but anyone in the US who owns a home, people can find you. If they know your general area, they can find you. They can show up on your doorstep. So I think it's just so important to talk about this and talk about ways we can combat these sorts of issues. All right, sorry, I'm taking over the entire show. My apologies.
Yes, that's all right. No worries. Hey, hang on, Josh. Hang on. Let's get. There's some really good comments in here. I want to get those in there, and then I want to focus on the survey a little bit more. Okay, so and to say what you want to say, Josh, first, and then we'll do that.
I would just, the only thing I would say to you, Vanessa, is I think I agree with you that this definitely what I'm talking about here isn't just the only part of harassment. But I would go so far as to tell you, and this is where I will disagree with you a little bit, is I think I have seen enough of my own examples of this where I would say that some of what I'm talking about also plays a part in going to the home, harassment, and all that stuff. It's just as valid. I just would say, I would go so far as to say that if, like I said, this is not a one size fits all thing in terms of the author safety concept. What we're talking about is fame. We're talking about the fact that we are putting ourselves out there into the audience, into the world, and that hits on a number of different levels: sure. Good, bad, and indifferent. And there are definitely ways, not just on the business level, but also just how we go out there and how we make an impact that definitely can be like, there's a risk, and that's just the way it is.
I agree.
All right. So Margaret says, thinking no one cares about me to harass me ignores the fact that harassment mainly about control, and harassers go after who they think they can control, not people they care about or are famous enough. And then Anita says, yeah.
I just want to touch on that.
Yeah,
because I was the one who said that, and no, I 100% agree. I just have a kind of a dark sense of humor, and uncomfortable issues I address with humor. So yeah, and part of that you're talking about, how people who they view the control. I readily acknowledge my privilege. I'm a white guy in America. I'm a straight white guy in America. Like the deck was stacked in my favor from the moment I was born. And I'm also a scary looking dude. I'm 6'1", over 300 pounds. Like I'm not the kind of guy that people are typically, and I'm from South Alabama. Everyone assumes I have a gun, even if I don't, So I'm blessed that, I'm not going to have, a lot of the same issues that someone like Madilynn or Vanessa is going to have simply by the benefit of my gender,
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. And thank you, Bob. I appreciate that very much. AF Stewart says, even online, you can have an industry harassment. There's been several incidences of authors inducing fans to harass other authors with abuse, including death threats.
Yes, that's true.
So, I mean, some of the numbers that Vanessa already touched upon in the survey, that 65% of respondents thought that less than 1/4 of authors were harassed. 72% of respondents had actually been harassed, and 28% of all respondents had suffered serious safety issues, including physical threats and criminal action due to writing. And then 28% of serious threats included all of those things that Vanessa mentioned, the arson attacks and everything like that. So going through this thing, the demographics is the first thing that they've broken down. And it's interesting that there is a newer author skew to the demographic here, that most of the authors surveyed were newer authors. And so, you would think that is
Well,
harder.
How are you defining newer authors? Because it looks like at almost
It's
half
zero,
of them
not started or have 1 to 5 works, in a number of works out there. And
right, that's like 25%, and then almost 50% have 6 to 7.
Oh, okay.
6
I
to
was
10
reading.
rather.
Okay, I was reading it wrong. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was reading it wrong. I apologize.
That's okay.
So yes. Then okay,
So
that
half
makes
are
more
about
sense.
mid-career. Half are about mid-career.
How long have you been writing? And then again, it's pretty skewed to the middle. And the other one is, what do they write? Only original fiction, just fan fiction. That just fan fiction thing, very interesting, but not surprising to me. I really didn't find that very surprising, because fan fiction is usually going to have a polarizing fan base, and
that's true.
So, like a Star Wars or something to that,
or
effect.
like the Sherlock Holmes stuff. So
Right.
yeah.
And
Well,
especially
also-
if you're, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, my background, I have a degree in anthropology, and so lots of stats classes. A lot of this is going to be informed by, they said that, they reached out to writing groups primarily,
Yeah.
And you have to think fan fiction writers typically don't have writing groups, and the other stat was, that nonfiction was only 5.6%.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, but I feel like nonfiction is another thing. Like, just from my personal experience, the number of people I've had show up to a writing group, nonfiction has been the vast minority of that. So there's far more people writing nonfiction than 5.6%. I just think that this didn't hit them because of the nature of how they acquired the information.
Very true. Very true.
That's true.
And that's kind of the problem with these surveys a little bit, is you can't determine who,
Right. It's not
is,
scientific.
Yeah.
But it definitely gives us an informed, a more informed view than just our own particular.
It's eye-opening. I think.
Well, I mean, they said that they tried to reach out to these fan fiction groups, and I mean, what is this? Is this fully scientifically rigorous? No, but I mean, it's going to be as good as most any survey that you're reading in the news that's coming out.
It's informational. It's absolutely informational.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it goes down to the really big one. I'm sorry, Josh. Did you want to say something?
No, go ahead. Just go ahead.
Okay.
No,
I'm gonna mute you because there's a lot of action going on behind you. Sorry. I just assume whenever I hear the Starbucks that you want to say something. So. So the one I really wanted to come down to was the perceptions of harassment, because that's really the one that is really eye-opening here, I think, for a lot of us. And it says overall more respondents suffered serious safety issues than most authors thought were being harassed in total. 12.6 thought it was rare, 52.7 thought it was occasional, 22.7 thought it was common, 7.1 thought it was frequent, and 4.8 almost every writer. That 4.8 is very stark to me. That is wow. That, I mean, Go ahead, Vanessa.
I was just going to say, honestly, I think that so much of that answer depends on how tied in you are to an author network, right? Because like if you're in an author network and there are a lot of people, then you're going to get a much wider view than if you're just in, and how that works is always depends on each individual person. Some people are very tuned into other authors, and some people are just, they have their specific groups. But I think I also agree. I was just so taken aback by just the numbers and just the disconnect between how many actually seem to be harassed and what people believe.
Yeah, I mean that common and frequent number should be much higher, in my opinion. But
something that I thought of when I was reading this, we always talk a lot on about imposter syndrome, and I wonder to what degree does
we talked about that last week, Bob?
yeah, I know exactly. So it's one of those deals where how many people they get this harassment and they think, well, if I was just a better writer, I wouldn't be getting this harassment. And so, but it's not that. It's not that you're not a better writer. This just happens to almost everyone, But I don't think a lot of people allow themselves to see it that way.
I was definitely surprised. Even myself, I was definitely surprised. I get in contact with a lot of authors. Like harassment, to me is common. But this is I want to be very delicate how I put this. All right, what I consider dangerous and safe from the safety standpoint, I would have been in the not necessarily occasionally, but I wouldn't necessarily put it that common either until reading this, and it's just wow. Right, because that's the thing. Harassment's almost a given. At this point, I've just seen so much from everything. I just assume all of you have had a story, except for Ron, apparently.
Or Bob.
I have one, but it's bizarrely personal to me. I just had a neighbor who didn't like me because I didn't like her kid.
Because you're right.
No, so she took that out at me by trashing me on my book review.
Because you weren't too Alabama.
You weren't Alabama enough.
I think that's probably what it was.
So I mean, there's stuff like that, right? So the safety thing was the shock to me. I've heard some doozy of some stories out there. There are some very well-known figures that have told some really excellent stories. Some are very honest about it. I think someone everybody should be aware of, someone like Colleen Doran, who's done some incredible things in comics. But the story of what she's been through is seriously, it's holy crap. Some things she's been through in this industry, and from fans and publishers alike, it's incredible. I think for my eye-opening moment happened. So for me, I primarily work with women. I primarily I was very much working with my first traditional publisher are women. My editors are women. And most of my illustrators are women. It really took a few before it really sunk in just exactly the kind of abuse that even just women go through on a regular basis in this industry. It's like I said, we could do a whole episode just on that alone. It's shocking. You don't realize it until you really put yourself out there and you see it and you hear these stories and you're like, there's no way this could be real. No, it's real. It's very real. It's one of those things where, like I said, and no matter where it comes from, it can be brutal and devastating, and it's amazing. It's amazing what goes on. And like I said, it's just, I mean,
having had to cast shows and been part of casting calls and things like that, there are unwritten rules about casting that you have to follow in order to, be legitimate and make sure that people feel safe and are comforted by the fact that this is not, something that's not on the up and up. And there's certain things you have to do, certain times you have to go through, that other women have to be present in at the time of the casting, and that oftentimes they'll bring somebody with them, things like that were just it was saddening, and it was very eye-opening to me, and it was it just was like, wow, this. And you always hear those stories about Hollywood and casting couches and all of that stuff, but to experience it and see it firsthand is, I mean, it's a different thing altogether. It's crazy.
I kind of want to. Can I respond to Margaret there? Because I want to point something out. Like this is, see, people always talk about fame as a good thing. Fame only has one use, just one. It makes you more money. That's it. That's all it's good for. Everything else, it's useless. In fact, it puts you in a bubble. It puts you in a cage. There are things you take for granted that you cannot do anymore. Right? That is fame, right? And it's a pain in the ass. It's also one of the problems with this, and this is something that, like, no matter how you look at it, to some degree, this industry is a touch narcissistic. We have to have an ego. We have to have an ego, and we have to have to push our products, our books. It requires a bit of an ego to do it. I'm being very.
I said a touch. What?
Yeah, but no. But every one of us has to have at least a touch of that. It doesn't matter who we are, right? We need it. It's part of how we do business, right? So it creates this monster to some degree. I don't think you can entirely escape it because you need that to promote your stuff. But that comes with a price tag. Right, that's just the reality. It just comes with a price tag, and that's why, like I said, fame is like the whole reason a lot of this harassment happens. No matter which angle you want to approach it on, fame, money, right? The goal, like the drive. That's what does it.
Well, getting back to the survey a little bit on the online harassment thing, that kind of it brings into the idea that a lot of these were not anonymous platforms. These are platforms we have to have a login and sign in, and 39% were from Facebook or Amazon or required phone verification, as well as truly anonymous platforms at 19%. However, one platform was specifically mentioned in the comments as a problem: Goodreads.
Yep.
Despite not being on the survey itself, 2% of authors specifically mentioned behavior on the platform and the platform's response as an issue. No surprise to me there. I know so many people who've had problems on Goodreads, and I've had people, from the smallest of things, which is people blanketing your books with 1-star reviews just to bring your numbers down, to people physically threatening, or online physically threatening somebody through a private message and things of that nature. So the numbers here were that 26% were pseudonymous social media. Sorry, 19% anonymous media, 13% pseudonymous platforms, and 27% identifiable social media, and 12% user identifiable platforms.
This to me was bizarrely comforting in a way. But hear me out. So this is something that I've really wrangled with, because I write everything under my name, and I didn't use a pseudonym because I'm too egotistical, and so, but it's something I've really wrangled with. Is like, oh God, I'm really just setting myself up for failure here. Long term, I'm gonna have to change my name, or delete my social medias. And kind of the takeaway from this was, it doesn't matter. No matter what you do, the harasser is still going to harass you, whether you do it under your name, under a pseudonym, whether you do it, whether you have a Twitter or you don't have a Twitter. If you have a Goodreads or you don't have a Goodreads, they're going to find you. They're going to harass you. So that was terrifying, while at the same time, it was like, it made my decision easier. It's like, well, you know what the hell, they're going to find me anyway. Might as well write it under my own egotistical name.
Well, as the one person on this panel that has a pseudonym for her books, I'm wondering how you feel about all that, Maddie.
Well, I mean, people still find me, so but a lot of people that actually don't know me like personally or I haven't become friends with, they don't know my real name at all. So it actually kind of protects a lot of different things, like a little bit, not a lot. Like if they really wanted to find me, they could find me. Um, it because obviously like you guys are all on my Facebook, you see things are tied to family things, which is like the only platform I will post up on, but I'm not on Facebook as my like author name. Like I can't like, and if you request me like as that on Facebook, sorry about you, if I don't know you, I'm not gonna catch you. So
Margaret wants to know if you just watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, Bob. Because nothing matters.
It sounds like I need to.
I feel like, so I have one series out under my legal name, right? This is my legal name. But honestly, I've been really thinking about just shifting everything under a pen name, because again, my name is very uncommon. It's easy. Like you do a Google search for my name, you're going to find me, period. And I'm really kind of crazily privacy focused in general. Like prior to me putting up my author website like 10 years ago, and I've been on the internet since 1996. Prior to me putting my name up on the internet, or my author website up on the internet about 10 years ago, you could not find me. Like the only thing that came up under my name when you search for it was my divorce decree. That was it. And you know, like the little ad you have to put in the paper, and that's only because the paper digitized it, right? So because it really is a concern, because right now people are insane. People are freaking crazy. Mm-hmm. And you know, everything is so polarized. People can't handle sitting next to somebody who has a different opinion than them about anything. And I have some serious opinions about some things. And, you know, I know. I'm subtle. It's what I'm known for. Kind of like Ron. But I made him laugh.
That's what I tell my wife all the time.
I win. I won the show. I made Ron laugh unexpectedly.
Yeah.
So the only thing I gotta tell you though, Vanessa, is I don't, like as Madilynn just points out, I don't know how you escape it. Right? There's a, you can find anything. And if someone really wants to find you, they're going to find you.
Well, there are ways though that you can, like you can make it harder. It's just like, yeah, if somebody wants to break into my house, all the locks on my doors aren't going to matter because all they're going to do is smash in a window. But I still think, lock my doors.
No, that's fair. But what I'm saying is, okay, in this very particular case, the locks aren't very. I'm just speaking just as someone just looking to interview people. It's not hard to find anybody. It's really not. And the thing, and I want to bring this up just like this for this reason, right? At this point, you've already, this is a marketing, and more so your name's unique. And I don't know, like from a business standpoint, it makes sense to change it for that reason. Not just business, not. No,
I know. That's why I haven't made that decision yet. But I kind of really regret not.
No. And I kind of get where you're coming from, but at the same time, the reality is, and this is something like I came to peace with. This is why I never changed. I thought of a pen name too. You're not escaping this. It was crazy 20 years ago. It's just become crazier now, but it was crazy 20 years ago, right? And some of the things, like I said, I got stories I could say. I could definitely share. The thing about it is, right? It's there's no such thing as a perfect safety mechanism. I think that it's very much like you can isolate yourself to a point. There's a point of isolation. There's a point of kind of dividing your platforms up as best you can. And then there's unfortunately and this is going to sound like callous, but I don't really know of any other way to do this. you have to have a little bit of a ruthless streak in you, right? And that right, you have to have a little bit of a ruthless streak, and that's just, no matter what kind of harassment, no matter what kind of abuse you're running into. What it comes down to is you got to make yourself. If you make yourself tough enough that it's a pain in the ass to deal with you, not just your pseudonym but your approach, people leave you alone.
No, I agree.
And, yeah. So, and that's the, like, that is the only real mechanism I have seen work at all. Right. I'm just speaking like there are agents who write under pseudonyms. You can still find them. There are authors who have pen names like Maddie. I love you, but I mean, yeah, you're not hard to find, right? And I speak that as a media representative looking for people prospectively to interview for my podcast. I can look you up. I can find you. We live in an age where everybody has a giant ass footprint. Everybody. Right. So I don't know if there's a really good answer anymore. Right.
Well, but no, there are precautions you can take. Like if you decide to go the pseudonym route, right, don't use the same photos for your pseudonym as you use for your personal, because those photos can be searched, right? So you use different, you can set up. And again, you're right. You're absolutely right. There are no perfect safety mechanisms, but the harder you make it, the fewer people who are going to continue to follow through. And honestly, the online harassment, like the calling me names or whatever, I don't care. Like, call me whatever fucking names you want. I don't care. You know, it's the idea that somebody can show up on my doorstep. It's the idea that somebody can find my niece. That's the idea, right? That's the thing that's scary to me. And if I can throw up different kinds of roadblocks that will deter, like, you know, if there's an army of people and there's a roadblock, some of them are going to fall off. And then there's another roadblock, some more are going to fall off. You know, yeah, you're still going to have the super crazy ones who are going to go like insane trying to find you, but you can't stop those. Right. But you can at least make it so much harder that the lazy ones will drop off. I think just kind of what I'm saying.
I think an element of this, kind of to tie it to a different, weirder avenue. But so like I had
that's what we love about you, Bob.
Yeah. Well, no, so my first publishing deal, they didn't edit my second book. They didn't realize they didn't edit it and they just released it. So I was not comfortable with that. And so I would not promote it, you know? And so I eventually, you know, broke ties with them, shockingly, and moved on. But so it's something I've always extolled to other authors is you need to be comfortable with where you're at to adequately really sell. You know, like if you're going to sell yourself, you got to be comfortable with your product. You know, you gotta feel like, you know what, this is a good product. I can sell this. If you're not comfortable, you're not going to sell it to the degree it needs to be sold. And that parlays over to this. You need to do whatever steps you need to take to feel comfortable in your space, knowing that there's always going to be wolves at the door. Do the things that are going to get you operating from a place of comfort.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not going to feel comfortable enough to sell yourself. If you're not taking the steps you need to take to feel safe, you're not going to put yourself out there like you need to make it as an indie creator.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Margaret mentioned the Courtney Project. I don't know if you've all had any experience seeing this or not, but I knew about this. But did you all see that the Courtney Project duo is having to go after someone who's been plagiarizing, copycatting their work and social media presence for 5 years? Wow. She's from Texas and is bringing the ruthlessness, legal system, etc. Yeah, this was we actually talked about this on a show about, I don't know, about a year ago, actually, maybe a little bit longer than that. This particular case, which was it brought up a lot of stuff that happened, a lot of fallout from it, and it was interesting. But we're toward the end of the survey, and we're going to talk a little bit on the other side of the break, which is not a break. Nobody go anywhere. But But we're going to talk a little bit about what we can do and kind of, solve the world's problems right here, right now, because that's what we do here at GoIndieNow. And with that being said, I should, if I was smart, sometimes, because I just got wrapped up in this conversation, I would have led into this with this great comment, because this week's Indie Connection has a lot to do with the middle school reader.
Hey guys, C.O. Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. Today I'd like to tell you about some books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Lev Grossman's The Silver Arrow. The first book I have for you is called The Most Spectacular Traveling Box by Mason Bell. The Dust Ball challenged Sophie May's sanity until the magical traveling box arrived. Because she trusts the invisible magician, Sophie May discovers the impossible has become reality. A chatty elephant, a boy who flies, Sophie May questions the magician's true intentions. You'll love this middle grade historical fantasy for its fast pace and fun characters. The second book I have for you is called The Universes Inside the Lighthouse by Pam Stuckey. An ordinary lighthouse on the outside, a portal to all of space and time on the inside. There's something not quite right inside the lighthouse, something it would be easy for most people to miss. But Emma Nelson is not most people. Together with her twin brother Charlie, she tackles the challenge of unraveling this mystery. Little do they realize that unlocking the lighthouse's secrets will take them on an adventure of a lifetime, to distant planets, throughout time, and the multiverse, and to a place where everything is possible. Together with Charlie, an identical Charlie from a parallel Earth, Mysterious Eve, Enchanting Ben, and unconventional but endearing scientist Dr. Waldo, can Emma chase down Vic, a man under the influence of an entity called the Void, before he destroys all the universes? The third book I have for you is called Octavia Bloom and the Missing Key by Estelle Grace Tudor. One tiny discovery can have enormous consequences. Almost 10-year-old Octavia Bloom is looking for adventure, but when it comes, it's in the shape of a tiny fairy door. Dragging her reluctant sister and cousins into the mystery, Octavia discovers her family are hiding not one, but two life-changing secrets. Why is her mother searching for an elusive flower? And does she have what it takes to reunite her fractured family? Octavia is certain the answers lie behind the fairy door, if only she could just find the key. And the last book I have for you is called Brightstorm by Vashti Hardy. Arthur and Maudie Brightstorm received devastating news. Their famous explorer father has died in a failed attempt to reach South Polaris. To make matters worse, the Longtown Geographical Society finds Ernest Brightstorm guilty of sabotaging the expedition of his competitor, Eudora Vane. But a mysterious clue leads the twins to question the story they've been told, and to uncover the truth, they must undertake the journey of a lifetime. Joining the ragtag crew of a homemade skyship captained by the intrepid Harriet Culpeper, Arthur and Maudie race to South Polaris to salvage their family's reputation and find out what really happened on their father's doomed expedition. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye.
As always, thank you to CL Cannon for that wonderful Indie Connection. I'm going to piggyback on it. I'm not copyright infringementing on this at all, Courtney, I promise. But it just gave me the perfect segue to mention our sponsored Indie Connection for today, which is the wonderful, awesome AF Stewart. And I want to tell you a little bit about what Miss Stewart has in store for you, creeping into the magical worlds that she creeps into and all the fun and blood and killing that she does. She now has a new novella out there called The Ghostly Tower. So meet Hayward and Anderson, consulting detectives in a paranormal London you've never imagined. Elizabeth Hayward has never met a puzzle she didn't want to solve or an adventure she didn't relish. Taking Sherlock Holmes as her benchmark, she's determined to be the best detective and monster hunter in London. Lars Anderson's ambitions aren't nearly as demanding. He just wants to stay alive, out of trouble, and out of jail. But when your partner likes guns and dynamite, that could be a challenge. Can he survive his new employment? The case. Discover if a stone tower on their client's estate is haunted. It could be straightforward, but ghosts aren't all they find. When they dig up a body, digging up bodies. A very, very staple of Miss Stewart's. They also unearth a murder and a tangle of secrets. Secrets they'd better unravel quickly before someone else dies. Set in an alternative supernatural version of Victorian Britain, The Ghostly Tower is the first riveting story in the Hayward and Anderson Consulting Detective series. Go get your copy right now. The link is in the description, and go get it. Go enjoy it, please, please, please. All right, now back to the fun we're all having in this glorious topic. I wanted to go over real quickly the last bit of the survey and the last paragraphs here, where they kind of wrap everything up. And they say, despite so many respondents thinking it was rare, many of whom are being harassed while thinking they were one of the few, 60% of authors took precautions. The fact that 73% were harassed shows both that the precautions were needed and that for up to 40% of authors, these precautions were ineffective. So if that's the case, what do we do? What can we do to help ourselves here as indies, kind of protecting one another? I would welcome the idea that it starts with our community and fostering a better community and bringing that forward. But what else can we put out there that would help get these numbers down to levels that they should be at? Because this is just harrowing.
So I have a practical tip that I'm going to steal from Venessa because that's who I got it from.
Nice.
We always are extolling the virtue of newsletters. Like, you got to have a newsletter. If you don't have a newsletter, what are you doing? Should have started it 5 years ago. But here in America, if you're sitting on a newsletter, you're required to have an address. And for most of us, that's our home. So we're literally sending our home address to everyone who subscribes to our newsletter. So get a PO box and use that.
Yes, I did that, I have to say, and it helps a lot because I totally did not realize that my address was on my newsletter. So, and then my husband was like, why are you sending everybody our address? I was like, I did not know that. So yes, I highly recommend getting a PO box.
Yes. And the thing is, they are something like $100 a year or something like that. And it is absolutely worth the money, period.
Uh-huh.
Sadly,
Again, California and everywhere else California is inflated. It's much more in California, but it's still worth it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Canada doesn't really have PO boxes, unfortunately, not to the same degree. Fortunately, I moved so much that they good luck finding me, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm going to just give you an example of what I did. So for my Alice Zero, my illustrator was Kenzie Carr, and I literally spent about an hour and a half after we agreed to do business. I talked to her about the industry. I gave her, I think we have to be honest with ourselves and say, and anyone coming into the industry who's serious about coming into the industry, they're going to deal with this. So you have to be, I think one of the things I've done with people is I've shown them a little bit what I've learned and kind of what I do and kind of give people some preparation, just because you're going to run into this where eventually somewhere, some form, somehow, whether again it's industry, whether it's fans, whether it's whatever the case may be, that harassment, that is inevitable. What I would tell everybody, like that's helping your community. For yourself, yeah, be ruthless, a little bit ruthless, not just with, like, again, with yourself, with your own work, with you're dealing with the industry, with fans. Have a bubble of some kind. As open as I am, there are things I do not share online, ever. There are things you got to keep private, and you have to have whatever those boundaries are. You have to have them, and you have to be willing to fight for them, whatever they may be. And the more famous you get, this is just the reality you're going to have to deal with, the more you're going to have to isolate yourself a little bit. There's a couple ways of doing it. You can hide in plain sight, go to a place like LA or Vancouver or New York, where there's lots of famous people and you just blend into a crowd, or you go into a more isolated community. That's what Stephen King does. That's what J.K. Rowling does. That's what a lot of famous people do. You have to accept the fact that, that's the price you're going to pay for doing this to some degree. And and then the last question then comes to this: how far do you want to go? You can't completely control how successful you are, but you can. But there are efforts like that push to be the bestseller, that push to be whatever it is your goals are. You have some say in that. So if you, depending on what your comfort zone is, right, you can shoot for. Now, again, you can't control the result at the end of the day, but there are definitely things you can do to mitigate that. I interviewed a group of musicians. They're happy with their day jobs. They're happy with their regular lives. So they only make so much effort to promote their music, right? They don't go too far. They go with what they're comfortable with. And I would say the same thing to everybody watching and listening to this. Your comfort zone and kind of stick in it. Again, but do be aware, the more famous you become, the more you're going to have a bit of a bubble. It's just the way it is.
It's true.
Agree.
Also, use the block function on social media. Do not be afraid to use it. Do not be afraid to report somebody as well. Report and block them. Kick them out of your group. Do it. Trust me. You won't have to deal with it later, and it's off your mind.
Yes, I agree. And I think so many of us are socialized to not offend, like, so the idea of blocking someone or kicking someone out of a group, it's like, I mean, how many times have you like got annoyed with somebody on your Facebook feed, but you didn't unfriend them because you don't want their feelings to be hurt or whatever. Do not, this is where the ruthless part comes in. I also want to talk about, so the P.O. boxes, if it's too expensive, get another author, share the cost. You don't have to be the only person on your P.O. box.
Genius.
You can like get 10 authors together and you can each pay $10 a month or 10
I was just making a bad California joke.
No, but it's true. But like there are, for a lot of people, like I've talked to some authors who are like, I don't know if I want to spend the money on a P.O. box. It's like, yes, you do. But if the cost is an issue, get more authors, get a bunch of authors, get people in your area, and just, you don't have to actually use the P.O. box for anything. God, my P.O. box gets so stuffed with crap from people who owned it before me. The poor post office. Anyway, some of the things I want to talk about keeping yourself safe. Like I said, do not post, like if you're trying to keep a separation between your pen name, if you have one, and your real life, don't post, like, don't use the same face shot for your person, don't have it somewhere on your Facebook albums, your headshot. Do not have your author headshot there. Keep your author headshot separate, because people can track you down from platform to platform. If you're posting on Twitter and you post something, you're at an event or whatever, and you also post that same photo on your personal side to show all your friends or whatever, those things can be found. So you want to keep, if you're trying to keep a separation, and like Josh said, there's no 100%, but if you're trying to keep a separation, do not use the same photos. Also, if you have children, do not post photos of your children on open social media. Don't do it. Just don't do it. So those are my big things.
Awesome.
What if you don't like your kids?
Well, I mean, yeah, if you've got like a life insurance policy, no, that's so bad. That's so bad. I'm not even going to go there with you, Ron.
You were worse than me.
Yeah.
Once.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. You're a hero. I still like Bob's plan. don't have any readers. So then there's nobody to attack you.
That's my current. That's my current
Yeah.
trajectory.
You don't get bad reviews that way.
Yeah.
Genius, I say.
Yes. He is.
Now, if you want something really dark, here, I'll go really dark here for a second. In the event the worst actual case happens to you and you get arsons and fires, post that stuff. It'll sell more books. That sounds really dark, but it's absolute. But the truth of the matter, the truth of the matter is, we're going to polarize our stories. That's part of what we do, right? And the thing about it is, the more we polarize, again, you're going to get more famous. You're going to get more people to pay attention to you. That is the reality. So if something like that should happen to you, and I'm not saying that, right? Take a positive from it. Use it to make more money. That's the only thing I'm going to say about that. Find a way to do that. But like I said, I think what we're all saying, I'm going to reemphasize this again, figure out what your boundaries are, whatever they are. There's no actual wrong answer here, right? But figure out what those boundaries are and make a decision of how you're going to pursue this. I said this. This is an ego-driven, narcissistic business, and every one of us is guilty of this, and we have to acknowledge this. So if you're going to do this, you got to make a decision on how much you want to dip your toes into this. Because the more you put in, eventually, if you do get to a certain size, you are going to get noticed by people. Period. So
Well, that's a great idea, Josh. Bob, what are your boundaries?
I try not to go above the bottom shelf in the liquor store.
And I will say, if you're in a group and you're moderating a group, moderate the group. I had to kick somebody out of our group this week for harassment. You have to start to take your own profile seriously for other people too. If you're in a group and you're presenting your brand, you have to also be willing to understand that you have to make some choices, and those choices sometimes aren't the easiest choices to make, but they have to be done if it means protecting other people. And you're responsible for other people if you have a group open, whether you want to be or not. You are, and you have to take responsibility for that. I think a little bit.
And anecdotally, I wonder if it's harder for me and Vanessa, being from the deep South, because culturally, from day one, you're right. Don't be offensive. Give them a God bless your heart. Bless
I'm
their
not.
heart,
I'm not Southern though. I grew up in Chicago.
See, I'm an Okie,
traitor.
so I feel you,
Traitor.
Bob. I feel you. Okay, I'm an Okie. I get it. So
Yeah.
for me, I don't like blocking people because I don't really care if they disagree with me. Like, I just legitimately don't care, right? And so
disagreement is one thing. I'm not saying about disagreement. I'm talking about straight up somebody violating the personal
No.
space of somebody.
No. I totally get what you're saying, but something Vanessa started being that uncomfortable with the block button. It's not that I'm uncomfortable. I just don't care if you disagree with me, right? And that's right. And that's a. But again, that's a personal thing. Like, everybody's got their own issues and boundaries. Again, we are all trying to hit whatever our audiences are, whatever they are, and that is that. And then again, for all of us, that's a different answer. So, but there's something Vanessa and Madilynn say. They're absolutely right. Don't be afraid to use it. It is actually cathartic when you do use it. Sometimes it is the right thing to do. So, but like I said, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's again, boundaries. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about your boundaries.
Yeah, piggybacking on something that Vanessa said earlier in the conversation about how our world is all fucked up right now and crazy, and the idea that we can't have a conversation between two disagreeing parties without getting to a boiling point, or that there's just so much polarization going on. We also have to embrace love and tolerance a little bit more in our society. We have to be willing to understand that there's people who have different opinions and different thoughts, and if we can have a rational conversation about that, that may tilt the tide a little bit. It's not going to. What we're talking about with harassment, especially the survey, is the amount of crazy that is going on in the world. But what we can do to help ourselves is not get irrationally upset at something that is, just mundane, or, it doesn't make sense to get to create a harassment. You know what I mean? Does that make sense to everybody? What I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I had an essay I wrote about for a magazine about comparing Canada to 1930s Germany. I was doing some research into the parallels and the similarities there. And one of my favorite discussions was with somebody from Germany and also somebody that had German descent. They disagreed with a lot of what I wrote, but we had such a wonderful discussion because their disagreements actually made my essay better. On top of that, they saw my points of view as well. And so there was a great little consistency. I like the thing about, I think one of the things we have to teach ourselves as a culture, right? I can have a great disagreement about you from everything from the sun rising to what color the sky is. It doesn't really freaking matter. The important thing is, am I willing to listen to you? So I can disagree with you, but if I'm willing to listen to you, it's not a big deal. It's when you go to me, I don't want to talk about this anymore. There's a problem, we have come to that point as a culture that we generally it's with everything, with every disagreement, again, we're not always going to agree on everything. And again, there's a boundary thing too. There's some things probably we should just walk away from at a certain point. But at the same time, we can't be afraid to talk to people we disagree with.
Something that kind of popped up as we were talking, the number of crazies out there has not increased over the years. It's their access has increased, and the beautiful and terrible thing about the internet is how easy it makes to organize. So that's why you wind up with things like Gamergate, where it's organized group harassment of individuals, and so there's nothing you can do to stop that. If a group of people decide that they don't like you, they can organize easily via Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and start a harassment campaign. So there's nothing you can do to stop that, but you can proactively be looking for the inverse of that. Find groups like GoIndieNow, find groups like the Writing Tribe, find these support groups and, dig in like a tick, get in there, become part of it. And then when the harassment inevitably comes, you have a support network in place that can help you cope with that.
Well, that was some excellent ass kissing, Bob. But
I know where my
there's one.
I would say so too.
There's one thing you're wrong about. What you meant to say was that the percentage of crazy people has not increased, but as the population of the Earth increases, there are in fact more crazy people, and with the technology that we've provided them, along with everybody else,
I would also say their volatility is increased as well.
Yeah, it is a little. Well, I mean, because you can now, instead of being a crazy person living on your own in the country, you are now a part of a worldwide network of an echo chamber of crazy people. Yeah, you become more empowered, I guess, to put your thing. But I mean, to me, not that we can't figure out this problem, but to me, it's about the insecurity of people who are infuriated when people disagree with them. I don't give a crap how wrong Venessa is about everything. I still like her, because no, I'm just kidding. Vanessa's awesome, but you know what I'm saying, that
he really doesn't like me.
It's people who cannot handle the fact that somebody doesn't believe the same thing as them. Yeah. I mean, that's an attack on their nature that causes the crazy. Because if they didn't care what you thought, they just go about their day, but they can't do that.
Well, I think that there's I agree with everything that's been said, that people should be able to sit and have a conversation and discuss our differences. We should be able to do that. I mean, we do that here, right? We do that here. I don't hate anybody here. I don't want to kill anybody here. But I do think that there's a difference between just you're welcome, Ron. My gift to you today is life. But I do think there's a difference between saying, we should be able to sit down and talk about our differences, versus there's an entire segment of the population that believes and a whole other entire segment of the population should not exist. And that's an entirely different thing, right? So I can't blame the people who are trying, like, whose existence is threatened. I can't blame them for not wanting to sit down and have a discussion with the people who don't want them to exist. That's 100% okay. They don't have to do that. That is not emotional labor they have to take on. If they want to just block the hell out of them, they should. I think they should, whether they want to or not. I think they should block the hell out of all of them.
Yes.
You know, and like everybody said, we can't fix any of these societal problems here, right? With 6 of us. I mean, if we could, I would love to do that, but yeah, right. Maddie's like, yes, let's do that right now.
Totally.
You know, so, and I also disagree that there aren't more crazies. There are more crazies, even proportionally. There are more crazies, and it's because of the things that Bob said that it becomes so rampant. I mean, look at QAnon. Those people, there are a lot of people in QAnon who were not crazy before then. They might have had some, you know, questionable, you know, ideas about whatever, but some of them are fucking crazy. And I don't know that, like, I feel like there's definitely a lot more.
So,
Well, I'm going to take a brave stand and say, no, everybody who was susceptible to believing anything from QAnon was already fucking crazy.
Let's be real.
You're not like nuts. A sane person and like, oh, I was exposed to this crazy idea. Now I'm nuts.
No. Let's be absolutely 100% real for a sec. We're all nuts. Don't kid yourselves. We all have our own little. No. Hear me out, Vanessa. Before you hear me out.
I am not the type of nuts that's going to take a gun and shoot people.
I feel like we should not go down that
road. Knock on wood.
We should not go there today. We'll do that another day. Here's what I am going to say. This is if you really want an assessment of the problem, like in terms of why there's more crazy, look at how we put our messages out there. I've been doing a lot more ad copy recently, and one of the things about ad copy is by its very nature, it tends to polarize first before it persuades. If you look at news, you look at most of our media, it follows that formula. We've created a culture of polarization, and we've been doing it gradually over the last 20, 30 years. The reason why there is more crazy is because our very messages from the very top, right, in terms of our media, in terms of that, they have created the crazy, right?
I agree with you.
Polarization is a big part of business. They discovered this in the 90s of all things Howard Stern. Howard Stern figured out that when he was very polarizing, that the people that hated him paid him more money than the people that liked him.
Same with Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah. But again, so we have been going down this formula for a very long time. We've created this mess, doing it this way for so long. If you really want to fix the crazy, if you really, really want to fix it, don't longer look at the fact that the people that are divided on different opinions than you, go after the people that divided us to begin with.
Well, yes. Absolutely.
See, that's the perk of Alabama. You know, it's hard to be crazy over a 56K modem. So we lag a good 20 years behind everybody else. So,
but what I mean by we're all crazy, this is what we have to acknowledge. All of us have been seeing the same messages. All of us have been taught to think a certain way. All of us have been taught we have to be realistic about what we expose ourselves to day in and day out. Yes, you may not be the type of person to put a barrel to a gun, Vanessa, but every one of us has our own little bouts of insanity. And we have to come to terms with that. Yeah, it's the only way we're going to actually be able to move forward. Right? I'm honest enough to acknowledge my own crazy.
All right.
Well, we're all honest enough to acknowledge you're crazy. That doesn't prove it.
I own my crazy.
I think using the term crazy is problematic because that's.
Yep, fair enough.
All right.
You know.
All right.
Rein us in, Joe. Rein us in. Can I talk?
We've gone through the tunnels now, so let's get back out there and everybody get ready for the thing I've been waiting for an hour and 20 minutes to say. Mr. McGough, tell us where they can find you.
talesbybob.com. That's quick and easy. If you search Tales by Bob on most any social media, you can harass me there.
And I was always going to pronounce it McGough, so I'm so glad it's McGough. So
Oh, you're
that's
closer.
awesome.
You're closer than virtually every telemarketer I've ever encountered. So you're already a leg up.
Awesome.
All right, Ron, tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
My website, Amazon, around.
Go Indie Now, Indie
Yeah.
Mayhem, Tuesday nights.
That's a good point. Why do I always forget to talk? I mean, I was like so proud that I remember to talk about it at the beginning of the show. But yeah, the most important place to find me is at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesdays for new episodes of Indie Mayhem.
We're headed toward the playoffs, everybody. Get ready.
Well, I will say we did film the first semifinal episode, and it was eye-opening.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Josh, where can they find you, sir?
So right now I am on Kickstarter. I have my very first short story and first published illustration. It's a story about a glorious glitter dragon that has been altered by its owner and wants revenge. You can go definitely on the Kickstarter link below and can bid on it. Like I said, it's a short story and my first published illustration, so I'm kind of proud of that. So it's kind of cool.
Yep, it's in the description, everybody. Go check it out. And if you can, give him some money. He needs it.
Huzzah!
All right. Venessa?
Congratulations, Josh. So the easiest way to find me is to use the links below, because I can tell you, just search my name, you'll find me. Yes. And if you are interested in, if you're a writer and you're interested in a really good support group for when the harassment ultimately comes, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for The Writing Tribe or TWT and you will find us.
You definitely will, and you should. It's an awesome, awesome group. So everybody go check that out. And I will put that link in the description. I don't know why I didn't already, but I will do that after the show. And congratulations, everybody. You're at GoIndieNow. You have found us. And I hope that you come in and hang out with our community as well. We really would appreciate that. And yeah, just come and hang out with us. We want you to be a part of what we do and how we do it. Thank you so much, everybody, for this opportunity to talk about this. And thank you to the Bookangel Club for putting the survey together and really opening our eyes, I think, a little bit. And the link to the survey is in the description if you want to go check it out for yourself and check out all the interesting things. And I also have to say thank you to the wonderful and amazing AF Stewart, who each and every week is supporting us. And so this is really awesome that I get to talk about what she's doing and everything that's going on there. And go get the Ghostly Tower. If you didn't hear my awesome read, go back and listen to it. I think I sold it. I think you should go get it right now. The link is there in the description. Go buy it. It's 99 cents, everybody. And I think that is awesome. And you should go do that. And while you're here, smash the like button, comment, subscribe, do all those wonderful things that we do. And now enough of my yapping. It's time for the last, and I muted myself beforehand. I got a little excited. The last and final 5 minutes with the wonderful and awesome, the one and only Madilynn Dale. Miss Dale, please take it away. It's all yours.
Hey guys. So before I get into the book talk, not the actual book talk, the book talk, like TALK, not book talk. I'm on there. But anyway, here's my website down here to find all of my stuff. I am also a host for GoIndieNow. Like Ron, I'm part of the Indie Mayhem craziness, and I host Talking Indie Mayhem following the Indie Mayhem show on Tuesdays. And I also do author interviews and a whole bunch of other great stuff. So make sure you check out my YouTube channel, thechaptergoddess.com, for some great authors. But now for the fun part. I have this amazing box set coming out in July. And right now for pre-order, you get 4 books, the first books of the series for 99 cents. And this series, it follows my main character, Liz. So Liz is a PTA. Well, for some of you, you may not know what that is. So that's a physical therapy assistant. She lives in Oklahoma, has been living in the city, super, super burnt out on work. and she didn't take time to grieve her mother's death. So she takes a weekend with her best friend to go kind of rummage through her grandmother's cabin where they grew up, spent a lot of time. And she decides, what the heck, let's take a change, make a big change. She's trying to make her life better, focus on her self-care. Decides she's going to move into the cabin, quit working in the city, live a slower paced life. So she does this, gets there, meets a guy, and then boom, her world is dumped on her head. Family secrets are uncovered. People are trying to kill her left and right. She's thrown into royalty in 2 different worlds, and her life is a shit show. But she kind of tackles it. I mean, there's a lot going on, from newfound family that she had no idea existed, different magical creatures she had no idea existed, magic that she now has that she's like, what the heck do I do with this? It's a great book full of adventure, and it's really empowering. Liz will take you all over the place. It is amazing. It's fun. It's more of a young adult fantasy, kind of some romance in there, but it's a blast. I enjoyed writing it. It really I poured my heart into it, so you get to see pieces of me come out in her character, and her best friend is hilarious. She's a crazy redhead. I've got a crazy redhead best friend who I kind of created her off of. And the two get into so much trouble. There's dragons, there's mountain lions, there's wolves, there's fae. It's a blast. So many paranormal creatures. And I even pull in some creatures that aren't exactly written about very often. So I hope you'll check it out. Yes, it is only 99 cents. Thanks, Joe, for sticking that in there. Super sweet, awesome deal right now. Only on Amazon for the moment. I'm going to put it up wide later, but yeah, check it out. And don't forget, it's always time to go indie now.